Hi guys, it's me Chazzer and welcome to this qualifying review for the 2018 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. This is the final qualifying session of 2018, and here in the next hour we are going to fully review what happened in this session, and plenty did happen in this session. Hopefully you guys are doing well and have recovered after qualifying. No matter if you're from the Americas, Europe, UK, Asia, Africa, the Middle East, Australia, wherever you are in the world, hopefully you're doing all good and you're ready for this qualifying review. Now, if you did miss out on what happened in qualifying and the results of qualifying, let me take you through them right now. So your top 10 is Lewis Hamilton on pole for the 83rd time in his career. Valtteri Bottas second, Vettel third, Raikkonen fourth, Ricciardo in fifth, Verstappen sixth, and then completing the top 10, Grosjean, Leclerc, Ocon and Nico Hülkenberg. And then your bottom 10 is Sainz, Ericsson, Magnussen, Perez and Alonso. Those were the drivers knocked out in Q2. And then knocked out in Q1, the two Toro Rossos of Hartley and Gasly, Van Dorn and the two Williamses of Sorokin and Lance Stroll. So those are your qualifying results here at the 2018 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Now we'll move on though, as we usually do, to the top three teams and how they did in qualifying today. So first off, Mercedes, and it was a perfect qualifying for them today. Now, we did see signs all weekend long that they could get pole position and that they did have more pace, say, to get pole than they would maybe tomorrow to get the race victory. But I'll be honest, I never saw a front row coming. Again, I know the Mercedes has looked good in qualifying trim, and in the final sector, the Mercedes is so good. But yeah, they were very, at the end of that session, very dominant in getting that front row. Ferrari just couldn't do anything about them, and they were very, very fast at the end of the session. Lewis Hamilton, though, again, another stellar performance. As I said, or as I put in my title rather, amazing from Lewis Hamilton. That lap he pulled out the end of qualifying was a special lap. Another special lap in 2018. He's had plenty of them. And for this one, again, another special lap. And this is what Lewis Hamilton had to say after qualifying. It was quite an emotional session for me, because it's the last time I'll be qualifying in this car. I'm so grateful to the team. Today was so much fun. And yep, he will be qualifying in this car for the final time. And I do think he has to be grateful for the team, because even though he has been brilliant in 2018, the team and their improvements during 2018 have helped. You cannot doubt that. So definitely does have to be grateful to his team, the Silver Arrows Mercedes. And here you go. These are the stats after his qualifying results. So obviously qualified on pole position. That's the 83rd pole of his career. His 11th pole of 2018. He does have the most pole positions in 2018. And that's his third pole position at this track. The two previous ones were 2009 and 2016. In 2009, he was leading until he retired with I think a gearbox issue. And in 2016, he won the race, rather controversially though. So, given the last couple times, Lewis Hamilton does have a very, very good chance of getting the race win tomorrow. For Valtteri Bottas though, it was good. I'm not going to say he was poor. It wasn't good enough. He was good, and definitely the team can be happy. And I think Bottas can be at least pleased with his own performance. I still think, though, Bottas could have done maybe slightly more against Hamilton, because this is a good Valtteri Bottas track. You know, last year out-qualified Hamilton and then out-raced Hamilton. So I am a bit surprised that Bottas ended up about 0.2 of a second behind. I'm not surprised he's on the front row of the grid. But again, I think he could have done maybe slightly better in qualifying, but he should still be happy with what he did. And this is what he had to say after qualifying finished. I was aiming for pole, but both of us on the front row is great for the team. Lewis was performing well and was very difficult to beat him today. It was difficult for sure, but if Bottas wants to be a success at Mercedes, then he's going to have to get closer to Hamilton. No doubt about that. But for Mercedes, a great day. Can they do this tomorrow? I am not 100% sure they can finish in a 1-2. But if they are, and I believe they are running those rear wheel spacers, if you haven't seen my Mercedes wheel rim video, I did it on Tuesday, make sure you check that out. That's going to be very important to tomorrow's race result. If they are running those upgraded wheel rims they had up until the US Grand Prix from the Belgian Grand Prix, then I think Mercedes will win the race, because those spacers help Mercedes cool down the tyre temperature and the temperature of the wheel as well. So if they are running it, that is very, very important for Mercedes. And if they are, then I think they will most likely win the race tomorrow. Next up is Ferrari, and again, I have to say, disappointing. Yes, you could say that Ferrari have never really been quick this weekend, but look at Q1 for example. Sebastian Vettel was fastest. Maybe Mercedes was sandbagging in Q1, I don't know, but again, for me, disappointing. Ferrari should have been closer. Vettel was only half a tenth off after the first run in Q3, but that was with Lewis Hamilton making 2 or 3 mistakes on his first run in Q3. It just shows you how, when it came to Q3, Mercedes just had too much pace for Ferrari. Now, again, pace-wise, I am a bit disappointed. I expected them to be, if they weren't on pole, to be maximum, say, like a tenth behind, but 3 tenths down and not on the front row. I'm sorry, that is quite disappointing from the Scuderia, and this is what Vettel had to say after qualifying. I enjoyed the session. The first run in Q3 was very close. For tomorrow, I'm quite confident it's a long race and it should be good fun. I'm looking forward to challenging these guys. I don't think you'll be able to with the kind of pace they had at the end of Q3. If they disappoint again, which we know that Ferrari in the races kind of tend to as of late, I don't see how they can. I don't think the biggest challengers to Mercedes tomorrow will be Ferrari. I think it'll be Red Bull more than it will be Ferrari. Of course, I could be wrong, just like I was for the Brazilian Grand Prix, where I thought Ferrari would be very strong and Red Bull wouldn't be strong at all. But I don't see Ferrari being up there fighting Mercedes, very hard for the win. I don't see it. I think Red Bull will, because their tyre wear and their race pace is so good. But for Ferrari, I just don't see it. I don't see it. And for Kimi Raikkonen, well, I think he did the best he could in the Ferrari. Again, the car just wasn't quick enough when it mattered. I thought Ferrari, again, if they didn't get pole, they should be, say, with their fastest car, a tenth off. But, they were 3 or 4 tenths off. Just not good enough from Ferrari. And I'm not confident for them in the race, because I think the 2 Red Bulls behind at the start will be all over the back of those Ferraris, especially Max Verstappen starting on the softer tyre. But talking of Red Bull, let's go on to them now. And, well, they did the best they could. for Max Verstappen, he qualified in 6th behind Daniel Ricciardo. I don't know what happened to Max, because I thought he went out on track at the end of qualifying, but I don't think he did. Either he messed up his lap and came back into the pits. I don't know, but I have to say, disappointing for Max. Normally he is the better driver in qualifying than Ricciardo, but just didn't get it done today. Disappointing, and starts on the hyper soft tyres for the race. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because as we saw in Brazil, it wasn't a bad thing. But yeah, I think Max had a bit of a scruffy session. It could have been better for sure. There's no doubt about that. And for Daniel Ricciardo, I think very good. At one point, I think after his first run in Q3, Ricciardo was up in P4 ahead of Raikkonen. I don't know if Raikkonen made a massive mistake or not, but Ricciardo did put in a very good first run in Q3. And I think did very, very well to out-qualify Verstappen in his final race for Red Bull. And hopefully, for Ricciardo, he, has a good final race. I really hope he does, because he deserves it. He's had such an unlucky 2018. His only podiums have been his 2 race wins. Everything else has either been retirements or 4th or 5th or 6th place. So I do pray to God that Daniel Ricciardo gets to the finish and please get on the podium. I don't think he will. I think if he finishes the race, he'll end up in 4th or 5th. I just don't think he has enough pace. I think Verstappen will be very quick tomorrow on the Hypersoft compared to Ricciardo on the Ultrasoft. But I'm just praying that he does have a good final race for Red Bull, and that Red Bull have a a good final race of the season. But guys, what do you think about those top 3 teams? For Mercedes, do you think Mercedes can win the race tomorrow with a 1-2? What did you think of their qualifying? For Ferrari, were you disappointed in Ferrari, and what do you think they can do tomorrow? And for Red Bull, what did you think of Ricciardo out qualifying Verstappen? And for the race, do you think Red Bull will have the fastest car? Put in the chat right now, and I will answer your comments. Answer as many comments as I possibly can. Right, let me just take a look at your comments. Right, Tonka Toy Truck. Vettel has really been crushed by Lewis in qualifying. He has. After the first half of the season, though, it wasn't dominant in, say, Lewis's favour. It was kind of 50-50. You had Sebastian Vettel. He took, what, 3 pole positions in a row from Bahrain to Baku? I think up until Hockenheim. Let me just think. Vettel had, was it 5 pole positions? And Lewis had, how many did Lewis have? Lewis had like 3. Or maybe 4 at most. So it was equal until Hockenheim. And then after that race, everything changed. Vettel just continued to go in a downward spiral. And Hamilton just got better and better and better and better, because he capitalised on Vettel's massive error at his home race. Ben McCarthy, are we disappointed with Ferrari? It happens all the time. Yeah, that is true. Francisco, I was expecting Mercedes to be faster in qualifying pace, but Ferrari definitely have a good chance in this race, or in the race. And Max starting on hypers is going to be interesting. Don't get me wrong, I think Ferrari should have about the same pace, if not slightly better than Mercedes. But, I thought they'd be faster today. And they weren't. They just continue to disappoint. I don't know what's happened to this team. Their pace was so good in the first half of the season, but it's just like the whole team has just gone backwards ever since the German Grand Prix. I can't believe this has happened to the great Ferrari team. Nathan, I think Bottas will lose a place or two because the Mercedes is so bad following other cars. Well, I don't know about that. It depends on the start. If Bottas loses positions off the start, maybe, but we'll have to see. Simon Troop, did you see Charlie Whiting ducking the debris after the F2 start line crash? Yes, I have seen that. That was a very scary accident. Ronan Brady, if this was the Red Bull Vettel, I think he would have won this year. I don't think he would have. He would have been a lot closer, but he wouldn't have won this year because even during his Red Bull days, and you can go back and look, he still had moments where he would bottle it and make very simple mistakes or would get overly emotional when, you know, other drivers kept their cool. I don't think you can really fix this about Vettel. This is just the way he is. This is just the way he is. I don't think he's ever really going to make any improvements on this. He's always going to have these emotional and mental problems when it comes to, you know, racing. I just think this is the way he is. And I don't think there's anything a therapist can really do about it. I think he should see one, you know, a sports psychologist, I think they call them. But I don't think it's going to make a massive difference because Vettel is now, what, 31 years old? He'll be 32 next year. He's not going to evolve. He's already gone past that point mentally where he's going to really massively improve. So, and I think someone just saying in the chat there, Daniel Crawford, Vettel's ego is too big. He is in denial. That is bang on the money. Vettel, you cannot deny it. He does have an ego. Hamilton does as well. But with Vettel, it's kind of a bit more annoying because when he makes a mistake, he never really admits it's his fault. He always pushes the blame onto someone else. Like, look at Suzuka, where he blamed Verstappen. At Monza, he blamed Hamilton. When those were clearly his mistakes, he's still in denial about his crash at Hockenheim. He still says that that wasn't the championship defining moment. It was, because ever since that race, in qualifying and the race, he and the whole Ferrari team fell apart. He is a man in denial. There is no doubt about it. Just looking at some more comments. Tonka Toy Truck, Vettel is very slow to admit fault or accept it. Yeah, I think he is. He has admitted fault before. I'm not saying he never has. He absolutely has. I think he admitted fault for the Bottas crash at France. But other crashes, which have been clearly his mistake, he has not admitted fault for when it's clearly been his fault. Such as Monza, Suzuka. And even though he knows it was his mistake at Hockenheim, he's in denial about how important it was. Because the reason it was so important was because he lost 25 points and Lewis gained 25 points. That was massive at the time. Absolutely massive. And that's why Lewis has had the mental edge ever since. Crystal Racing, despite what I've said, I struggle to see Vettel winning another championship. Even a move to Mercedes can't stop the fact he's beginning to decline. I agree. If you ask me now, will Vettel win another championship? I really don't know. I don't know. I don't think he will next year. I think Lewis and Mercedes will win the title next year. I think the earliest you can expect a team to beat Hamilton or Mercedes to either the Constructors or Drivers' Championships is probably 2020. If Red Bull really improve with Honda. I think 2019 Red Bull and Honda are just going to be learning together. I think for 2020 Red Bull could be up there going for the title, but I don't see how, again, until 2020 at the earliest, that Mercedes or Hamilton are beaten in their respective championships, and I don't see Vettel really I mean, of course he'll go for the championship, but I don't see when he will win one. After, of course, winning the 4 he did at Red Bull. I don't know. I don't know how long he's going to be at Ferrari. If Charles Leclerc beats him next year and Vettel does lose the championship again after making several mistakes and loses the championship also from a winning position like he did in 2017 and 2018, I don't see how Vettel can possibly recover for the rest of his career. I think Vettel will be done, quite frankly, for the rest of his career mentally. If he gets beat by Leclerc and he bottles the championship again, and so do Ferrari, I don't see how Vettel can possibly recover mentally for the rest of his career. And I think he'll be gone from Ferrari very soon after that if that does happen. And again, if we don't know if that will happen, I hope Vettel does improve for 2019, but I don't see it. Vettel, I think, will win probably the same amount of races he's won this season, next season. I think 5, is it, that he's won this season? He'll win another, 4 or 5 races next season, but ultimately Hamilton will go and win probably 10, and they just will be better. I don't see Mercedes and Hamilton being beaten again earliest until 2020. Right, let me read out a few more comments. Vettel's prime was 26. Ronan Brady, Vettel will beat Leclerc a lot easier than people think. I'm not denying that he could, but I think he'll be closer than you think. I think it's going to be very close between those two. I don't know if Leclerc will beat Vettel. I think they both have a good chance of beating each other, but I don't know who's going to win that battle. It's going to be very, very close. Simon Troop, Russell winning the F2 race and also the championship. Yes, congratulations to George Russell, proving why I think he is a star of the future. I really think he is. Nathan, do I or do you? I don't know if I think you're asking me. Do you think Ferrari have swapped focus to winning the Constructors instead of the Drivers' Championship? I think this because of putting Leclerc in the car. Yeah, I can see your point. I can see your point because Leclerc will probably score more points than Kimi and be faster than Kimi. But I think they're putting Leclerc in the car. One, because he's too good to keep in the midfield. You have to put him up to the Ferrari seat. And also, because Vettel now, 2 years in a row, has made so many mistakes that have cost him 2 World Championships, I think they're kind of sending a message to Vettel saying, look, we've given you the teammate you've wanted in Kimi Raikkonen for a couple of years. You've contributed to your own downfall and contributed to our downfall in losing the championships. We're now going to take away your comfort zone of a teammate in Kimi Raikkonen and put you under pressure with Charles Leclerc. And if you can't get it done, then Charles will. That's what I think they're doing, and that's what I would do if I was Arriva Bene. Halam899, Ferrari don't trust Vettel anymore. I wouldn't say they don't trust him. I think they have lost trust in Vettel for sure. And I think Vettel might have lost a bit of trust in Ferrari. Diego, I think, is it Pina? Where will Leclerc's first win at Ferrari be at? Oh, I don't know. I really don't know. I think Bahrain is a very good track for Leclerc to win at because Ferrari have a great record at that circuit. And Leclerc was not that good this season at Bahrain, but in F2 in 2017, wow, what a performance he put on there. So, yeah, I'd say Bahrain would be the first opportunity when he'll win his first race. Yeah, I'd say Baku. I think Baku will probably be his first win at Ferrari, but don't be surprised if it's Bahrain. And Ben McCarthy saying, hopefully Monaco. I think he'll win in Monaco. I really think he'll be right up there in Monaco. Because as we've seen, when drivers drive at their home race, it's almost like they gain an extra quarter of a second or an extra tenth or two. So I think he will be right up there at Monaco. Then McCarthy Ferrari will look like a different team in 2019. Vettel isn't going to win any more championships in my opinion. Ronan Brady, if the V8 engines had not been got rid of, we could be talking about Vettel as a 7-time champion. True, but at the end of the day, I think these last 2 seasons were a good thing for Vettel, because there's always been a debate about, did Vettel win because of the car? I think the last 2 years have proven that his very fast Red Bull car did contribute a lot to his success. You can't doubt that after what we've seen in the last 2 years. But these last 2 years were supposed to be, right, now we get a battle to see who is finally the best out of these two, Hamilton and Vettel, in somewhat equal machinery. And Hamilton has proven that he is the better driver and the best driver. So, yeah, he could have been a 7-time champion, but I think it's kind of better for us fans and also for him as well that this has kind of happened, because I'm hoping he gets a bit of a wake-up call from this, because he does have a bit of a... I get the feeling with Vettel, he has a kind of a sense of entitlement. I don't know what you guys think, but that's what I sometimes get from him. He's a nice guy, but when it comes to racing, he's very entitled, or at least he comes across as that. Hamilton can come across as that sometimes as well, and a bit cocky, but I think Vettel definitely comes across as entitled. But Ben McCarthy says, I hate it when people say that it's hard to deal with pressure. In my opinion, it's what they're there to do. It is hard to deal with pressure, but the best sportsmen in the world, the champions, the real great champions, when they are under pressure, not only do they perform even better. For example, Lewis Hamilton, Michael Schumacher is another one. I don't know if I'd say Fernando Alonso, because for me he's kind of 50-50 Alonso when it comes to pressure. But yeah, the great champions in sport perform under pressure, and Vettel, he doesn't, so I can't call him one of the greats of all time in F1, because under pressure he gets so much worse. But anyway, we'll move on from the top teams and go on to the midfield. First off, McLaren. McLaren were a bit better today. I think they were lucky with Alonso, because Gasly, if he didn't have his issue, probably would have got into Q2 and Alonso would have been knocked out. So I think they were lucky with Alonso. And I think Hartley also messed up his lap as well. So I think they were slightly lucky, but still good performance by Fernando to get into Q2. Couldn't do any better, and Van Dorn was in 18th. I think McLaren, I think they have probably the penultimate best car on the grid. Say the second worst on the grid. I think they are faster than Williams, but I don't think they have a faster car than Toro Rosso. I think Toro Rosso do have a better car. Not by miles, but I think they do have a better car. And hopefully Fernando, by some miracle, gets some points. That would be great to see. Next up is Renault. And they did kind of what I expected. 10th and 11th. I think that's a good performance. I didn't think they would be as close to Haas and the Sauber of Charles Leclerc in qualifying. But yeah, 10th and 11th. That sounds about right for Renault at this track. And hopefully for tomorrow, Renault can have a decent race, and I think they will. They're going to be having to fend off a couple of cars though. For example, Sergio Perez down in 14th. I think it's going to be very quick. You also have Kevin Magnussen, Marcus Ericsson. If Gasly does have a lot of pace, he could come from the back. So they're going to be battling hard, Renault, for points, but I think they should get at least one of their cars into the points, and hopefully they did. They've had a good weekend so far, and I think it'd be good to see if Renault end 2018 on a high after what has been, results-wise, a successful season. And next up is Force India, and, well, for one of their cars, it was very good. Esteban Ocon qualifying in P9. That's about the best I think he could have done with the car. The Force India car this weekend hasn't really been that good. I kind of expected that, but yeah, it hasn't really been that good. So 9th place for Ocon I think is quite good, considering that Force India have not really been doing anything special this weekend. Sergio Perez, though, 14th. I have to say, normally those two, Ocon and Perez, are very close in qualifying, but yeah, Perez was just nowhere near Ocon, so that's quite embarrassing for Perez. But of course, we do have the race tomorrow where Perez can make up some ground. But this weekend, Force India do have a very important battle on their hands. They're trying to hold off Sauber for tomorrow's race to finish in P7 in the Constructors. And in qualifying, this is how the two teams matched up. So Ocon qualified in 9th with Perez in 14th. But Sauber, I think, did have the better qualifying with Charles Leclerc 8th and Ericsson in 12th. Now, will Sauber do enough to dispose Force India of P7? I don't know. It could happen, for sure. If Charles Leclerc, I think the permutations are, if Charles Leclerc finishes in 7th, which I think really could happen, and Ericsson finishes in the points as well, and Force India don't score any points, then Sauber will finish in 7th, and Force India will finish in 8th. So it's definitely possible for Sauber to do it, and from that qualifying position, 8th and 12th for Sauber, they really could do it. I think Esteban Ocon has to pull out a good performance tomorrow if Force India are to hold on to P7 in the Constructors. And hopefully he does have a good, what is going to be, final race for, well, most likely until the 2020 Australian Grand Prix. But guys, what do you think about those three teams? For McLaren, what did you think of them? For Renault, were you surprised they got a car into the top 10 at the end of Q3? And for Force India, what did you think of their qualifying? And do you think they can, and they do have the pace to hold off Sauber for P7 in the Constructors by the end of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix? Make sure to put your comments in the chat, and I'll read out as many as I possibly can. Right, let's take a look. Well, before I read out some, let me just let you guys know, if you are new to the channel, we do this every race weekend, and we will be for 2019 as well. So don't forget to subscribe on the bottom right of the screen, or click on my channel name and subscribe to the channel, and hit the notifications bell as well. Right, let's take a look at some of these comments. Joseph Friedman, at least Alonso got out of Q1. Yeah, that is something, I guess, but that's so sad that that's now a success for Fernando Alonso and McLaren. McLaren's next podium is going to be 2023. I think, yeah, I think the next realistic season where you can expect McLaren, if they start to improve, say from next year onwards, I don't see them consistently up there in 3rd or 4th place until, yeah, 2022, 2023 at the earliest. Nick says that there has been a massive change in the sport and how to drive the cars. Pre-hybrid was a different sport, and some people adapt and some don't evolve fast enough or to the same standard. Yeah, I think you're referencing Hamilton and Vettel. Yeah, I do agree, but at the end of the day, great drivers are great in any era of racing. I think Hamilton would have been great in any era of racing. Same with Vettel. Same with Alonso. Verstappen, Raikkonen, Ricardo, you could even say. I think they all would have been great. Leclerc, they all would have been great in the same, in different eras. Whether that was the refueling era with grooved tyres, or the turbo days in the 80s, or the 70s. I don't think it's much to ask of a great driver or a driver with great talent to adapt to new ways of driving or the rules. If you're great, you should be able to adapt. And if you can't, then are you great? I don't know. Tonka Toy Truck. The struggles of Force India, Williams and McLaren just goes to show how important getting the aero part of the 2019 package is. Right. Could be some real shake-up in the standings next year. I don't think we'll see a massive shake-up. I think we will see some surprises. I already kind of know what my running order would be for 2019, what I think it's going to be. I'm not going to get into it right now because I think we're actually, me and Nib, we're going to do a podcast about 2019 very soon. Where we'll do our, what we think right now is going to happen. But with Force India, I think they are a dark horse for 2019 because I don't know if you guys have seen, but Force India are going to be employing, I think, 200 new staff between now and 2020. And are using now a better wind tunnel, I believe. So, Force India are utilising the new cash very well. Even though they're not that very quick right now. I think the reason that is because they are now fully focused on the 2019 car. Not this car. Right, let me just look through the comments. Tam said, who got pole? Lewis Hamilton. Rona Brady, have to say Hulkenberg is someone who I think hasn't developed to be as good of a driver as I thought. He is still good though. Yeah. With Hulkenberg, I don't doubt he's a good driver, but I don't rate him as highly as others do. I know he's a guy in the F1 community that people absolutely love because they think, if you put this guy in a Ferrari, he's going to be fantastic and he can do this and that. Hulkenberg, at best, is a number 2 driver at Ferrari or Mercedes. He's very similar in terms of talent level to Valtteri Bottas. He can win a race or two in a top car, but he's never, ever going to win a championship. He's never going to do it. If you don't win a championship in F1, it's not really the end of the world. There's been plenty of drivers that haven't won a championship and had, a great career. Sterling Moss, Barrichello, Coulthard, Eddie Irvine, Felipe Massa, the list goes on. So, yeah, for Hulkenberg, I think unless Renault really become like a championship contender, say around 2021, when they really should do if they continue to develop, I don't see Hulkenberg really ever breaking away from the midfield in terms of quality. Just looking at some more comments. Rona Brady, I thought when he was at Sauber he was a future world champion. I've never looked at the guy and thought that. With Hulkenberg, he has had very good performances. But when it comes to this whole podium thing, people will say, oh, he's been so unlucky. But he hasn't. He hasn't been unlucky. He has had 2 opportunities that I can remember at least where he could have got a podium and he blew it. Brazil 2012, he was going for the win of the race, never mind the podium, and he crashed into Hamilton and completely blew his chance there. And then Baku in 2017, he was running quite highly. I don't think he would have got a podium, but you never know if he was in there. Again, you don't know what would have happened. And then he made such a silly mistake. And I'm sure there's a couple other races where he could have got a podium, but yeah, I've never thought Hulkenberg was ever this top driver that people claim him to be. I still think drivers like Romain Grosjean are faster than Hulkenberg. I think Hulkenberg is more consistent and a better overall driver, but I think Grosjean is faster. I think Perez overall is a better driver. His time at Force India proved that. Perez had 4 podiums and Hülkenberg didn't have any. So there you go. Scars says Hülkenberg is inconsistent. He has been this season because up until Silverstone or Hockenheim, he was the best driver, I think, in the midfield. And then, since then, he hasn't really been that good. I know the car has got worse, but Sainz has been better in the second half of the season. Ben McCarthy, I think Hülkenberg is the reason Renault are 4th. Yeah, he is. Again, I'm not doubting that, but I just don't see how he's this massively talented driver that people claim that he is. I don't see it. I also don't really see it in Ocon, a lot. Ocon, I think, is better than Hülkenberg, and I think Ocon can win races in a top car. But I don't think Ocon is going to be, say, one of these top drivers in a top team. I don't see it. I really don't see it. Right, let me read out a couple more comments, and then I think I'll move on to the rest of your midfield. Scars says, or would like to say, every run since Q2, Hülkenberg was getting a slipstream from Hamilton. I actually noticed it. Yeah, he was getting a slight slipstream. I think Q3 I noticed. I think it was. It might have been Q2. He was getting a bit of a slipstream. Summer Cragland, I think Hülkenberg has been really good this year. This has been his best season, but it still hasn't been. It hasn't been amazing, because again, Sainz in the second half of the season has, I think, been better. And Simon Cragland also says Ocon has really smashed Perez in qualifying. True, but if you look at the races, Perez has been about equal, if not slightly better. Very, very slightly better. Scars asks, what is your opinion on Red Bull's race pace, Chaz? I think Red Bull will have the fastest car tomorrow. I don't think they'll win the race. I think they could win the race. I don't think they will. But they will have the fastest car. They just, starting on the third row, it's kind of too far back for them to win the race. And Abu Dhabi, it's a very hard track to pass at compared to Brazil. So, yeah, they'll have the fastest car, but they won't be able to get right up to Lewis Hamilton like they were with Verstappen in Brazil. But I think I'm now going to move on from those teams and go on to the rest. So Williams, we don't need to talk about them. They were at the back. They have no pace. Hopefully for 2019, they do improve with Russell and Kubica. Toro Rosso. Now, with Brendan Hartley, disappointing. No real surprise though, because Brendan Hartley, when it comes to qualifying, has been so poor this season. I think he's a lot better of a race driver than he is a qualifying driver, but there you go. Pierre Gasly though, yes, disappointing result, but if his car had not died on the final corner, I think he would have got into Q2, and he could have gone into Q3 as well. He did have quite a fast car this weekend, and it's such a shame for Pierre, and this is what Pierre had to say after that failure. This was not the last qualifying for Toro Rosso I would have wanted. Out of the last corner, I came back on the throttle and lost power on the exit. I'm disappointed because the lap was coming together well. It was. He improved on his first two sectors, and I think overall for the lap, up until the final corner, was up on what he did previously, and he would have gotten to Q2. So, yeah, disappointing for Gasly, but there you go. Some kind of Honda power unit issue. Disappointing for Honda as well, because they made so much progress in 2018. But if they can be reliable tomorrow, I think Gasly does have the pace to get a surprise point If he does, get a good start and gets up to the back of your Ericssons and your Carlos Sainz's and, drivers like that. Next up is Haas. Now with Romain Grosjean, it was the best he could do. P7, he has been great all weekend. And I think has basically shown so far this weekend why he's at Haas for 2019. Yes, he's inconsistent, but when he wants to be good, I think he is the best driver at that team. I think Magnussen is a bit, say, calmer. Not that Magnussen is calm, but I think Grosjean, again, when Grosjean's at his best, he is the best driver in that team. And today and this weekend, Grosjean has been at his best and very fast. But for Kevin Magnussen, again, a disappointing qualifying. He's had so many disappointing qualifying sessions in the last few races. The last race, he qualified outside the top 10. He qualified, I know Grosjean was bad in Mexico, but Magnussen was in, was it 16th or 17th or something like that. US Grand Prix, I think Magnussen was quite low down there. So I don't know what's wrong with Magnussen. I have kind of a theory on it. I think Magnussen, the reason he was so good in the first half of the season was because he couldn't be sure if he was going to be at Haas for 2019. So he knew he had to put in great performances to keep his seat. And once it was announced that he was going to keep his seat, ever since, he's been behind Grosjean and been actually quite poor. So I think that's why K-Mag has been, just not good. And I will say as well, K-Mag was actually lucky, because if Gasly had got through to Q2, Magnussen would have been knocked out in 16th place. So he's lucky he starts in 13th, but still quite poor from K-Mag. And finally is Sauber. And Charles Leclerc again, P8, not as good as I thought it probably could have been, but again, still a good result for Charles Leclerc. Marcus Ericsson in P12. And again, like I said earlier with Force India, they can set themselves up and can have a good Abu Dhabi Grand Prix and beat Force India to P7 in the Constructors. I don't know if they're going to. It's definitely possible, but I think Sauber have a good enough car to do so. They're going to need a couple of things to go their way. Force India to have a disappointing race, which I'm not quite sure they're going to. And for Ericsson to get into the points, they need basically both Saubers, to score to Sauber. So hopefully they do have a good end to, I think, a very successful 2018 compared to 2017, 2016, even 2015 and 2014. This has been, I think, Sauber's best season since 2012. 2012 was way better than this, but I think this has been their best season. But guys, what do you think about those four teams? Forget Williams. Toro Rosso, what did you think of their result? For Haas, what did you think of K-Mag? And do you think that K-Mag has dropped off because his contract was renewed and now he doesn't really have to perform for anything? And for Sauber, what do you think they're going to do in tomorrow's race? Put in the chat right now, and I will read out as many comments as I can over the course of the next 10 minutes. Right, let me take a look at what you guys are saying. So, Joseph Friedman, this really is Sauber's best year since 2012. I agree, it is. 2013 wasn't bad, but the first half of the season, they were nowhere. Then the second half of the season, they were good again. This has consistently been a good season for Sauber. They've got better as the season has gone on. Anders Ericsson, seems that K-Mag had cooling leaks according to Danish reporters. Okay. That's interesting. I'll have to read up on that. Simon Cragland, I actually thought that Sauber would get both cars knocked out in Q2. They wasn't that quick in practice, and even Leclerc said that he was surprised about the position. Well, for Charles Leclerc, when you set the fastest first and second sectors in Q1 and Q2, you can't be that surprised. And I have to say, how he did that, Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Just imagine what he could do for 2019 in that Ferrari. I can't wait to see him and Vettel and Hamilton and Verstappen. I can't wait. Why can't tomorrow be the first race, honestly? Simon Cragland. Grosjean said it was his best qualifying ever in F1. Impressive stuff from Grosjean. I haven't seen that comment, but I guess it's one of his best. I wouldn't say his absolute best in my opinion, but then again, you can't really tell because the Haas is so far off pace-wise compared to the top three teams. And, you know, when he was at Lotus in 2012 and 2013, that car was a lot closer to the front of the field. So, I guess, maybe, I don't know. Simon Cragland. Gasly said that he was on to improve by 0.7 of a second. Well, if he did, he would have probably got into the top 10 at the end of Q1. Tonka Toy Truck. Sauber will be fun to watch grow next year, I hope. I think Sauber will be good, say, compared to the last few years. I don't think Sauber will be as good as people think, say up there in 5th in the Constructors or anything. I think Sauber will most likely be about 7th or 6th at best in the Constructors. But they will, with Kimi Raikkonen for sure, get some points finishes. Tonka Toy Truck. Grosjean is a better or faster driver than K-Mag, but K-Mag is a smarter driver, making him more consistent. And in the end, you have to finish the race to score points. True, I wouldn't say K-Mag... Well, he is a smarter driver, but I wouldn't say any of those two are smart. Those two do a lot of questionable things in that Haas car. Ronan Brady, I think Sauber will be good as Kimi is good at developing a car. True, that's why I think he will be up there getting points finishes. Simon Cragland, Giovinazzi will be good next year. I think he will surprise a few people. Well, if he does, then I'll be one of those people that are surprised because I don't rate the guy as highly as others do. I don't. I rate his pace. I don't rate his skill when it comes to racing. I don't rate that. I do rate his qualifying pace, but we know another driver that used to drive for Williams who used to be very similar to that, but I won't go too deep on that. Ronan Brady, what made you form such a bad opinion on Giovinazzi? I have seen some of his, it wasn't F2 at the time, so GP2 stuff. In GP2, he was fast, but erratic. And yes, even though it was 2 races, those first 2 races for Sauber, you can't deny he was very accident prone. Yes, it was only 2 races. Yes, maybe he wasn't used to the car, but he made a lot of mistakes for a driver only in their first 2 races. And you could say, oh, well, Charles Leclerc did. Well, Leclerc, he didn't really make that many mistakes in his first 2 races. Leclerc made, in Australia and Bahrain, I think, 1 mistake in those races, which was in Bahrain qualifying. Giovinazzi made a mistake in Australia qualifying, China qualifying, and what else? Oh, the race. So I don't think Giovinazzi, again, very quick from what I've seen in GP2 and what he showed in F1 in his only 2 races. He is absolutely fast as hell. But when it comes to racing and keeping his nose out of trouble, I don't think he's going to be good from that perspective. I think he's a bit too aggressive. But again, he could surprise me. A couple of drivers have surprised me in 2018. Pierre Gasly, for example. I didn't think Gasly was that good coming into this season, but he surprised me. So, there you go. Crystal Racing. Giovinazzi has outpaced Ericsson in FP1 regularly by 0.3 of a second, and he finished P2 in his only season of GP2. Again, I'm not doubting his speed, but I just doubt his racing ability and what he will do in the races, because it's great being very fast when it comes to qualifying. That's what qualifying is about. But when it comes to the races, you have to be more careful. You know, look after your tyres, not push the limits, because you can't win the race on lap 1 and all of that stuff. I have doubts about that. Again, he could prove me wrong, but I have doubts. Tonka Toy Truck. I just hope Toro Rosso will not be Red Bull's guinea pig next year like they were this year. I don't think they will really, because Toro Rosso were this year because they had to test out how good that Honda was, coming towards 2019. I don't think that'll be the case next year, though. And as Ericsson, hope that Honda engine is fast and reliable. I'm not too sure about the reliability, but pace-wise, it's improving all the time. So, yeah, we'll see next season. Simon Kraglin in China, Leclerc spun. He did. And in the race, he did. But those weren't in his first 2 races of his career. Right, I'll just look through some more comments. Make sure I haven't missed any. Halam899, do you think Russell will get the Mercedes seat over Ocon? I think Russell, right now, if he does perform well at Williams and show his talent, I think he's in a better position to get that seat. Because if he, massively surprises and almost does a Charles Leclerc-esque thing in that Williams, then what's not to say that Russell will be lining up alongside Lewis Hamilton for 2020? We don't know. Right. Tonka Toy Truck. Max deserves to drive a car with the chance to win a championship. I hope Honda is fast and reliable too. One of the reasons I want to see Max go for the championship, not only because it'd be very exciting, but I want to see how at this stage of his career, how he deals with championship pressure. There's pressure when it comes to winning races and all of that, and Max has had that pressure and dealt with it mostly well. But there is nothing like in F1 the pressure of a world championship, and everyone reacts differently. Look at Vettel. Last 2 seasons, reacted badly. Lewis Hamilton normally reacts well. So, it'll be interesting to see how Max reacts. Hopefully, he does have the mental strength to carry him through and not make really silly mistakes. Simon Troop, what have been the best 5 F2 races of 2018? I can't give you a top 5, but I'd say the best one I have seen is probably Hungary. The wet-dry race in Hungary. So that would have been the feature race on the Saturday. That was the best race I've seen in F2 this season. Right, let me just look at some more comments. Going back to the Hulkenberg thing, Ronan Brady saying it was in 2015 against Perez that changed my mind. I think what happened in 2015 basically confirmed to me what I was kind of already suspecting, that Hulkenberg was not as good as people claimed him to be and was not the best driver out of that midfield bunch that deserved to, or deserved a chance at a top team. I think Perez deserves a chance at a real top team, not McLaren in 2013. For me, that does not count because the McLaren car was a midfield car, not a top car that can win races. So for me, that doesn't count. I think Perez does deserve a Mercedes or a Ferrari type seat. I think as well Perez will be regretting not going to Renault. I think was it for 2017 he had the chance to do so and turned it down. I think that's a mistake by Perez. for sure. Right, let me just... I'm going to find a couple more comments now, and then I will end this review of qualifying. The last qualifying session of 2018, and, well, it wasn't great, but I hope you guys did enjoy the qualifying watch-along earlier, and if you haven't checked it out, it's in the description down below. Ron and Brady just think we all thought 2013 was a bad year for McLaren. Perez couldn't be expected to do wonders with that car. Jenson Button didn't do wonders with that car. That's how bad it was. Crystal Racing disagrees with Perez being a Ferrari, Mercedes potential driver. I'm not saying in terms of like quality, but I think he deserves a chance to fight in a front-running car. Not maybe a front-running team, but I think deserves to be fighting at, you know, more towards the front. I think he does, because he has put in amazing performances. Malaysia 2012, Canada 2012, Monza 2012. What else? I wouldn't necessarily say Bahrain 2014, because I think the Force India car was fast enough to get the podium anyway. Russia 2015, he was a bit lucky, so I wouldn't quite say that. But Baku 2016, he was so fast. So fast. He could have finished up in second that day if he didn't have a penalty for that race. And in Monaco in 2016, in the wet, at a track where Force India normally don't do that well, he finished third ahead of Sebastian Vettel. So, you know, just look at those performances. If this, you know, if this was Charles Leclerc that had done, say, a couple of these this season, we'd be lauding Leclerc as the next Ayrton Senna. But with Sergio Perez, for example, I don't know, people just don't rate the guy that highly. Again, I'm not saying I'm going to rate him as high as, you know, the top drivers in the sport right now, but I think he does, or did, at least, deserve a chance at a top team. He put in the performances that deserved that exactly. Crystal Racing, Perez has been out-qualified 15-6 by Ocon, and a number of kids are coming through. That makes him a career midfield driver. Again, though, as I think I just said, yeah, maybe he doesn't deserve it now, but it's a criminal thing, in my opinion, that he's never had the chance to fight in a proper top car in his entire career. He should have gone to Ferrari, or Ferrari should have tried to get Perez. It was so clear that Perez was the driver, I think, at the time to replace Felipe Massa, but they didn't go for him. It's just, for me, it's criminal that he's never got a chance in a top team ever. Not just now or for the future, but just in his career. I can't believe a top team has never looked at him and thought, let's put him in the car, look at these performances. He is a very good driver. I can't believe he has never got a chance. Crystal Racing, not doubting Perez's ability to pull off a brilliant drive in mixed conditions, but he lacks that raw pace. Well, you're probably not going to like this, but Kimi Raikkonen doesn't exactly have amazing pace right now, but is still at Ferrari, or has been at Ferrari since 2014. Now, I'm not saying Perez is as good as Kimi Raikkonen. Don't even try and think that. Kimi Raikkonen is a level above Perez, but Raikkonen doesn't have that, you know, raw pace, but is a lot more better in the races. And I think maybe Perez is kind of similar to Kimi in terms of doesn't have the qualifying pace, but is very consistent when it comes to the races. And I think a top team would enjoy to have that kind of driver on board, someone who's very consistent in races. Right. I think I am going to end the stream there. Thank you guys for interacting in the chat. But guys, just to let you know what's coming up on the channel for tomorrow and Monday, let me show you right now so you guys don't forget. So, Tomorrow at 12 p.m. UK time will be the race watch along, the final race watch along for the final race of 2018, the 2018 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. And then on Monday will be the final race review of 2019, already thinking towards 2019, of 2018, reviewing the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix live again at 6 p.m. UK time. Hopefully you guys will come along to those. It'd be great to have you along as always. But guys, that has been it for this qualifying review. Thank you guys for coming along. And if you are new to the channel, we do this every race weekend, and we will for 2019 as well. So don't forget to subscribe on the bottom right of the screen, or click on my channel name and go to my channel page and subscribe to the channel. Also, like this video, comment down below what you thought of this video, and comment down below what did you think of this video, and what did you think of qualifying, and what do you think will happen in tomorrow's race. As well, don't forget to join the Discord server, link below in the description. Discord is the best way to get notifications for my videos. That's why we have almost 100 people in that server right now, because again, it's the best way to get notifications for my videos. So you have to get in there if you want to catch up on my videos. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Chaz6110. Great place to keep up to date with me and the channel. And as well, check out chazrhd.com, another place to keep up to date with me and my content. But guys, until the race watch along tomorrow for the final Grand Prix of 2018, the 2018 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, it's been me, ChazRHD. Goodbye.